Hey, this is Clifton Fair, LMHC and Executive Coach. Welcome to Klif Notes. We will be covering a myriad of topics ranging from executive and leadership challenges, as well as our own human existence, running the gamut between being a human being as well as being a leader within organizations. Stay tuned, show up, listen, watch. We want to make sure that you capture everything that we provide on this show because it's going to help make you better. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Klif Notes. I'm Clifton Fair, and today we are joined by none other than the queen herself. This is Miss Tatiana Williams. Miss Tatiana is the current leader of Transinclusive Group, and she is doing a lot of transformative work, not just within that organization, but also within the community. And we are definitely blessed and highly favored to even have her sitting on the couch with us today. So welcome, Tatiana.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be a part of this platform. You do such amazing work. Normally, I would look around to see what I'm getting myself into, so I'm trusted that you will be bringing me in a good space.
No tough questions.
Huh?
No tough questions.
Oh, no.
Right?
No, and I'm excited to be here and be in your space and to have this conversation this afternoon.
Well, thank you so much again for being here. One of the amazing things about who you are is the fact that you really live, in your truth, you live for the community while you also live in it. Is there any tough part of that as you kind of like navigate all that water that seems to be just kind of running one into the other?
The tough part would be for me is that when it comes to the transgender community, because I live like this, I don't want to say a double life. So within the work that I do, when I'm in the community, definitely in the trans community, but once I come away from that, I navigate and I live as a heterosexual woman. So I'm not bringing any of that into my space and, around where I live, where I shop, where I congregate. Most of the people don't necessarily know my sexual identity in terms of being transgender. So when I'm in these spaces or in community spaces, that's when it comes alive. It's important to me to disconnect in some ways because there's a lot of things that's happening in our state. We don't have to go into that, but in that can be traumatizing and that can put a lot of weight on you. And that weight you have to kind of like release.
Right.
And so for me, disconnecting in my personal space is very important to me.
That seems like it's really tough for anyone to be able to do successfully. And I'm wondering if there's like any key components that you've just been able to not just internalize, but practice on a day-to-day basis.
I think it's important in anyone's success is to make sure that you take care of you, right? And a lot of people would say that they take care of themselves, but don't actually do it.
Okay.
So as much as I give to community and give to the work, I also pour into myself to a flaw.
Right.
And oftentimes people have questioned my integrity because I pour back into me just as much as I pour into the community. And yeah, very interesting because I would say like if they see me, I may make videos and I'm having a good time, or if I treat myself to something nice, given the fact that I serve an underserved community and marginalized community, in some people's mind, they may think that you are traumatizing the community because there's a lot of people don't have and you're showing them what you have. And for me, I think it's a form of empowerment.
Modeling, absolutely. Right. Absolutely. I second that because, without a model for me to reach for as a professional or as a person, just a human being, I really feel like I could get kind of stuck in the circumstantial stuff in my life.
Absolutely.
Right? So I applaud you for actually living so boldly and out loud. I love your videos, by the way.
Listen, listen, I'm going to do what I'm unapologetic about who I am.
Yeah.
When I came into Advocacy, I spoke my story, my truth, and I got to leadership not because it's something that I wanted. It was something that they feel that I needed to be in that space because that representation, they needed someone that was bold, that was out, that would speak, that didn't care. And that's me.
Right.
And so in that, I like to show where I came from because there's a lot of women that have the similar background like myself, being an ex-sex worker for 30-something years. And I came out of that, right? And coming out of that, I want to show them that it can happen.
It can happen.
If you put work into it. I didn't say it was going to be easy, but it can happen. So utilizing me, my life, my story to be able to tell that is very important to me.
while you've been traversing all that difficult terrain, and really growing into the woman that you've become, or that you're becoming, right? Because it's an ongoing
Yes, an ongoing process.
There have been some times where you may have, said something that has hurt somebody's feelings, that has possibly, challenged them or thrown them off their game, upset them, hurt, whatever. Like, you've gone through all that, and
Right.
I'm wondering if this version of Tatiana has any words for that person or those people, or better yet, that younger version of you that needed to be that verbal. But is there some words to actually give to her?
I think that it's important that, as you mentioned, navigating this space. And for me, I don't do anything intentionally, but sometimes I do have a tone and I may say something that someone may take offensive. But coming from me, I'm not there to hurt anyone,
Right.
but I think I look at it as an educating moment. And a lot of people don't like to be educated in certain moments, right? So we may be in a conversation, and if I throw it out there and if it sting, and there are sometimes I may let you know that this is going to sting a little
Right,
bit.
heads up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because a lot of our community members are not versed and don't have a certain understanding in certain things in the community. So I have no problem with pause. This is what's happening. And I say this, people have came to me and say, I really like the way you move. I like what you do. And it was like, when you come in the room, you own it. You come in the room and then you will make your point and leave out and don't care how they feel. I was like, I don't, because I know where it's coming from.
Right.
It's coming from a good place. Now, if you want to have a conversation and let's unpack that, I'm open to that.
Okay.
Oftentimes people don't want to address that issue,
They'd
right?
rather hold on to their hurt feelings or their hurt. Okay.
Absolutely. And having a life, and I say this, so I was going to give you a title of the book.
No, I want to know. You can't do that to me. Right?
Because I mean, this is life, but I'll say it here, but for me, it's important that I don't have a degree of any sort, right? And I wanted to really teach people how to become a six-figure earner without the letters behind your name.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And it takes a lot to do that.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so for me, that's why I use my life and I use my story, because I'm here to empower, especially when we're talking about Black trans women.
Right.
Very few Black trans women outside of the ones that are in the media are successful.
I feel like the word marginalized doesn't even give credit to the amount of struggle that Black trans women have to face.
Absolutely. And oftentimes we don't have access to college education, right? Opportunities to be in workspaces, right? And all that I think would contribute to our success. And so if you're not able to go to school, you're not able to get that education that will help you improve your quality of life. So it's important to me to show you, if you're not able to get that education, there are ways to get around that and make it happen.
The idea that I could be better than who I am today is something that I feel escapes not just the trans community, but also people at large. And I say that so people can actually stop looking at it from that step removed. Well, that's not me. I don't identify. But yeah, you do. As a human being trying to figure out this thing called life, we do need to be able to honor those connected tissues, the connective tissues. I thank you for everything that you're doing. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. I contribute who I am to my grandfather and my mother.
Okay.
And at the time when I was younger, my grandfather used to call me captain. Now, at that age, I had no idea why I was captain, but that's what he chose to call me. And as I got older, it was because he felt like when something was happening with the other kids, he would always come to me and was like, he knew I would tell him exactly what was going on. So, and for short, he would call me Cap.
Right.
When I transitioned, he was the first to say, now what's your new name?
Wow.
No one had to teach him anything. He looked at me and was like, I know you got to have a new name. And in that, I was always empowered. Like, even when the guys would try to get me to play football, he would like, leave him alone, And so I was empowered. And my mother would always say to me, it doesn't matter who you choose to become or what you choose to do, just be the best at it. So I'm young, and I'm hearing this years after years. So as I become an adult, I'm like, okay, I get.
Right.
I get what they were saying.
Right.
So for me, I've been blessed, and I know it's a blessing. I've been blessed to have a family that fully supported me because I think it contributes to who I am as a person, to my mental health. And so I'm able to live unapologetically the woman who I wanted to be.
You know, you spoke about years of growth and development and support, and I'm wondering, like, what areas are you working on growth in right now?
So for me, I like to align myself and build a team around me that can help me with some of those shorts, right? And I am one that still is a work in progress in terms of my temperament. And I can hold things in, and having people around me in that space to help me manage that is one of the things that I work on. You know, I'll shut down and it'll just be specifically about me. And sometimes I can be too business. I stand on business. And standing on business can be offensive to a lot of people. And for me, it's important to me because I like to say, like, and it also got in the way of me being in a relationship because my partner at that time did not understand me as a person. And I'm like, I'm on my last leg here. You know, I'll be 52 in May. So I'm like, I don't have time to play.
You look
And
great.
thank you.
You look good. I like that moment of pause. Thank you. I like that. That was good.
Well, you know, so and in that, he didn't understand like where I was at in that space, and I'm like understanding where I come from, how hard it is for a Black trans woman. He didn't get it. He didn't understand me fighting, trying to hold my own in a world, in a space where people are against you. He didn't get it. He was like, "Oh, I'm here," and I'm like, "Yes, you are here, but when you're gone, what happens?"
Right.
And so it was important to me. So that was like a bridge in our relationship. And eventually, you know, it dissolved. But I learned a lot in that space, a lot. And, you know, me, outside of that, I've been in 3 domestic violence relationships. So me getting to where I am now, that took a lot of work within myself because I have friends that just as well as I give it, I have to be able to take it.
100%.
And they would tell me, like, have you noticed what's happening with you? You may be picking different men as a person, but that same person you are picking. So what is it in you that make you keep going to these type of men that exhibit that behavior? And I had to realize, like, okay, that has nothing to do with the men. It had something to do with me. And then I had to self-reflect. And so I often speak about self-reflecting because I don't believe in teaching something or telling people something that I don't model or I don't practice.
Right. Hypocrite.
Absolutely.
Right. Got you. I got you. You know, the amount of courage, and I will always use this word as it relates to you. The amount of courage that you used, or mustered, or developed, or just have, period, in order to sustain yourself and your growth. That's something that you've done personally. You've done it professionally. And I know, beyond the shadow of a doubt, the young trans woman or the young trans man that's coming up behind you needs to be able to access that for themselves, especially, and we'll go right into it with the political climate of today. What do you tell them? How do you pour courage into them right now? What do you say?
What I would say to them is in life, there's going to always be curveballs. There will be obstacles. There's no such thing as a perfect life. But what I say is get yourself in a space, get you a team, and not necessarily a team. I'm just going to say people that you trust and build that circle for you can have someone to lean on because we all need it, not just them, but I also need that circle of someone that I can lean on, that I can vent, because what I am noticing in this world, it doesn't seem to be getting better. It seems to be getting worse, especially as we're moving into this election season. I think it's important to be empowered from within, which is why we create spaces with the organization for you can come and get that love, right? And I realized as I got older, when I was talking about my grandfather and my mother, is that before I went out into the streets, they was empowering me, giving me that armor that I needed. So when I got out in the streets, that I would be able to handle that until I got back home and got me some more courage, right? So building that space from within the organization is very important to me. And I often tell people about this work. I say things like, you have to understand your assignment. And the reason I say you have to understand your assignment because that's what it's about.
Right.
And a lot of people will come into leadership or come into spaces because they want to be looked at. But if you're not sending a message, if you're not empowering people, if you're not bringing people along with you, you're doing it in vain.
Right.
And I personally feel like people that come into the work self-serving, I don't feel that's a value to the work that we do for our community.
100%. It gets in the way. It
Absolutely.
clogs that line.
Absolutely.
You know, as you continue to step up and step out for just for the community at large. I'm not just going to speak about you being a leader in the Transinclusive Group, but as you step out there, what's that message that you're carrying to the people that are really kind of getting in the way of forward progress? So getting in the way of just people living their own respective lives. You know, what are you saying whenever you go to the next conference or the next convention in order to try and bridge that gap?
What I would always say to people is take yourself, especially us that have privilege, remove yourself if you can. If you could just step outside of you and understand that you don't have to agree. Just like do an exercise of understanding if the shoes was on the other foot. If that was you, how would you want to be treated? Those individuals that come in spaces in which I was telling someone earlier about this nonprofit complex, what I've seen and I continue to see is it's dividing the community. And for me, that's hurting because when I came into nonprofit, it was about saving, working, care, making sure people have. And the way it's set up now, people are starting to come in and there's a lot of fighting. And it hurts my heart to see us fighting against one another when we should be out helping each other. So for me, I say to those people that have that behavior, just think about you. Think about if you was in that position and what that would look like. But we also have to talk about what does oppression look like for our people, right? So if I see you succeeding and I see this is what it appears to be what success look like, no one thinks about what you've went through.
You had to go through in order to get
to that. And not thinking about that, that's the part that I think we miss. And so you're looking at the glory and the glitz, but you're not thinking about the hard work that went into it. You're not thinking about that example you could be for someone if you was genuinely in it for the right reasons.
I appreciate you being so clear, right? And I think that clarity is something that is definitely needed for a lot of us who are just trying to get through the day-to-day and sometimes could just get lost in the muck and mire of that. There are several initiatives that you're working on right now, though, that you need to make sure that you actually stay clear on. What are those?
A few. So what's most important for me now, because I'm an advocacy-driven organization. Transinclusive Group is advocacy-driven. So me, it's about talking that talk. That's what I do.
Right.
I love it.
You do it well. You do it well.
Yeah, that's what I do. So we're advocacy driven, but we're working on, we have a new initiative that's happening, started now, and we're bringing on a new staff member. Actually, I'm onboarding her now, and we're working with cis women and trans women merging together because there's a lot of conversation that has happened with trans and cis women where it's almost like we are against each other.
Yeah,
but it's
divisive.
Yeah, and it's not. We're like, we want to be our sister's keeper and talk about those commonalities opposed to those differences, right? And how do we connect that? So we'll be doing a lot of work around that for the next 3 years. We was funded for that. So I'm going to bring that person on. So they'll also work with our current coordinator. And I was speaking earlier, so I just got back in from New Orleans. And so we're doing a Building Trans Power, a national initiative with the Transgender Law Center. So in that, we're trying to bring resources together. So we'll have like a national agenda, if you may, of what we're working on together and how we can share resources across the country. And also we're doing some gender affirming care, trying to figure out how do we keep our kids, our trans clients in care. What does that look like in states that are against transgender care? So we're working on that on a national initiative and seeing what that looks like. So we're in like a think tank right now.
Yeah. I'm excited to see what happens, what comes out of that. And please keep me informed about how I can support.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay. Oh, she wants to take this moment. Okay, get the checkbook.
Yes,
Get the checkbook,
I gotta say it. I don't have to say it. So I don't. I don't have to say it,
All
but
right,
yeah, and
copy
it's
that.
and it works. And this year we're part of the Florida AIDS Walk. Last year we did an amazing job.
Yeah.
We raised $329,000, and all that helps the organization because with Transinclusive we also do an emergency support fund that people don't know. So if someone calls, they're sick, they can't pay their bills, can't pay their light bill, can't pay a phone bill, we do that.
Okay.
We do
Okay.
that, and people don't know
And
that.
there's help.
Yeah, for the trans community, if you identify as a trans individual, if you need help, if you need anything, transinclusivegroup.org, you'll see a button that say emergency fund. Click on it. Someone the coordinator gets to it, send it down the chain, and you give it what you need, with respect.
Right.
We're not buying houses.
Absolutely. Absolutely not.
Yeah,
Absolutely
but,
not.
but
You
yeah.
can get a ride, not a car. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There are also other things that you all do, and you just spoke about the group that y'all are currently running, where you have trans women and cisgender women that are actually showing up
Yes.
and participating in a group. What other resources are y'all offering as far as support or any other area that the community could benefit from?
So we have a second Thursday and a last Thursday meeting, which is a support space. And that last meeting is for the entire community. And the reason it's for the entire community is because there's a lot of people within the community that I don't want to say curious, but just want to be educated, want to understand the trans community a little bit better.
Stop messing up pronouns.
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad.
That's one thing.
Right.
And we opened that space up for them to come in and get whatever that is they need. And it's a safe space. So it's no question that's crazy because we open it up for you to be in that safe space to ask whatever it is that you want to ask, and no one will be offended.
Non-judgmental.
None. So when you get out in public, you already know what you need to know because you've got that space and you've been educated in that space. Now on the second Thursday, it's just specific to trans and non-binary individuals. And that's how we started. We started in the support group space.
Oh, wow.
It was weekly.
Okay.
And in that, we was coming away every week with like resources that the community members needed. And I'm working somewhere else at that point, and I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm like, we got to figure something out. So eventually it just grew into the organization because the community was needing resources, and it was like, this is more than just a group, and we're meeting because it's like now we're here, we're discussing what's going on in our personal lives and the things that we need. So what happens tomorrow?
Right. Y'all were able to grow it into something that had more depth.
Yes.
And more, and not just access, but also more resources.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
I'm product driven. I have to see something.
Absolutely.
Like I can't just.
It's got to be
sit and-
tangible.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I gotta
all these
see-
ideas, right?
I got to see it happening, and I have to be touched by it. Sometimes the team can get busy, and I answered a call the other day, and I was really touched. It was a woman just was released from incarceration, and she couldn't get back home to Broward County and just not eating. And in that moment, I got touched because sometimes I can be way over here doing administrative work, and I have someone else dealing with the clients, right? But when I dealt with that individual, I was like, it touched me. And I had to pull back, and I was like, wow, I handled it right then. But I realized that's the connection to me and the work. And that's what keeps me moving. That's what keeps me fighting. That's because I know there's people that need it, and there's a lot of people in our community that don't know how to articulate how they feel or don't have access to those spaces that I have access for. So when I'm in a room, when you might say something that offends someone, because it's not about me. I'm not all the way over there, but I got through, right?
Yeah.
So it's important for me to make sure that those behind me, that I'm pulling them up and I'm understanding what it is that they need so I can bring that into the space.
Don't be selfish.
Right. You
I just
can't
heard
be.
that. Right.
The blessings don't come when you're selfish.
Absolutely not.
I'm gonna say fight until it's over.
Yeah, I see it. I don't see you backing down at all. I really do appreciate the time that we've had together today. I thank you for you showing up and being in this space with me.
My pleasure.
There's one more thing that I would want from you to give to the viewing and listening audience, and that's that nugget. What does that little girl need to hear who's struggling through the transition or just struggling through life? What does that little boy need to hear as they're trying to understand themselves or figure things out? What's that nugget for them?
So for me, what I would say to that little boy or that little girl or that person is that you have to believe in you and understand in that believing in you that one day you will get there. And you have to give yourself grace, give yourself time to understand you as well, because we have to understand ourselves so we can be better for others, right?
Yep.
And I could say this now as a grown woman, it has helped me. And ultimately, I'm not sure how other people may see it, but I pray a lot. I've been brought up in the church. That's what I know. And I know that my higher power is going to take care of me because I'm genuine and I treat people the way that I want to be treated. And as a child, that's what was modeled to me. And so I modeled that even when I was younger. Like, I wouldn't give you my last, but I give you a little piece.
Right,
Because
right,
of,
right, right.
cause,
I got to take care of
yeah,
me.
yeah, I'm
Right,
going to keep
right.
a little bit
Yeah,
for me.
absolutely.
And so in that process, make sure that even if the love doesn't come from home, make sure you find somewhere safe or someone safe that you can also get some of that, because we have to, as much as we want to give, we have to get as well.
Tatiana, thank you for that. Really appreciate you, your
My
insight,
pleasure.
your wisdom, and also your heart.
Thank you.
Thank you. Folks, you've just witnessed another episode of Klif Notes. Thank you very much for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.